Welcome back. Communities across the state and here in Northeast Wisconsin are facing a severe housing shortage. Today, local representatives from the home building industry and Realtors Association stopped by Off the Desk to dig deeper into this issue and possible solutions. Here's our conversation.
As it stands today, we need about another 140,000 new housing units by 2030. So that isn't a lot of time. It equates to about 20,000 housing units a year in Wisconsin. And right now we are producing about half of that. And we have been for the last decade producing about half of what we've needed since the last Great Recession. And that significant constraint on supply has been obviously really driving prices up, as well as Tom can tell you, the cost of new construction, supply, labor, all of those things have also just about doubled. And as a result, it is having a huge impact on all people who are looking for a home, but especially our first-time home buyers. In the last decade, we've seen the average age of a first-time homebuyer go from the traditional late 20s, early 30s to 40 years old.
Wow.
40 years old is the average age now of the first-time homebuyer. And it is taking approximately 7 years for them to save for a down payment. And that loss of about a decade, going from about 30 years old to 40 years old, equates to a loss of $150,000 in equity that they could have had in that time period, not to mention things like delaying being able to maybe start a family, that impairing their ability to choose necessarily the job they want based on where they can find housing and things of that nature. So it's having a huge impact on our communities across the board, and not just for today, but potentially the impacts of to the future.
One of the things that happens with that is we have statistics that show the average homeowner is about 43 times more net worth than average person that's renting. So we know home ownership builds wealth, and only about 50% is actually the house part. So we know it just builds wealth for the community. So it's really important that we have homeowners in our community.
So we're talking about rising housing costs, limited inventory, high property taxes, and then employers. How does this impact them? This isn't just a single person issue or family. It's a community issue.
It really is a community issue, and we're finding that employers are having a hard time recruiting people to our area simply because there's no place to go. We can even look at vacancy rates for apartments, and we're at 4%, which is well below the 5 or 7% that's considered healthy. So we know it's a housing pinch all the way across the market, and it is affecting our employers.
Forward Analytics did a study recently that is showing that over the next 5 to 10 years, not only is Wisconsin having trouble recruiting the workers that we need, but we are set to lose approximately 130,000 working age individuals through retirement, things of that nature. And so we are in desperate need to recruit individuals. So that those numbers I gave you before about needing about 140,000 housing units, that's just to adequately supply the people we have now. That doesn't talk about the number of units that we would need if we started becoming successful in recruiting and being competitive of getting more in Wisconsin.
So when you talk about the need for all of these homes, what types of housing options are really needed to meet the demand out there?
Well, that's a really good question. We've lost some of the diversity in housing simply because of rules. The federal government really cut back on condominiums and that type of thing. Our zoning restrictions over the years have tightened to the point where we've lost some of the ability to push density. Now, we are seeing communities getting pretty aggressive across the board, Green Bay, Appleton, and many of the other surrounding communities looking at their zoning code and trying to figure out ways to help us fill those gaps. But really, density is the only way we can hit those numbers and actually hit the financial goals and make affordability realistic again.
At the end of the day, I think even when individuals can understand that we need more units and trying to get them just to accept that we're going to have growth, trying to get them to understand that nothing is going to go back to the way it used to. The cost of construction, demographic changes, just the lack of land that we even have available in a lot of areas, we are not going to be able to solve this problem by doing development the same way we have always done in the past, what people are used to. We are going to have to adapt and change if we're going to dig our way out of that. And it's by doing the type of housing that Tom just said. It is going to have to be denser. It means it's going to have to be on smaller lots. You're going to have more diversity of housing options incorporated into development, meaning you're going to have a mix in an actual neighborhood of both multifamily and duplexes and townhomes, some smaller homes, along with more of your mid-size homes, all within an area, kind of the way we used to do development. And that is the only way we're really going to be able to meet the needs that we have today and for future generations, again, so that we can provide them with the same types of opportunities that all of us, older people have been able to enjoy, and restore what we've seen in surveys as younger generations losing that hope and that dream.
We need the open-mindedness of the community and the neighbors as well, because they have been a hurdle to us moving forward in a lot of these guidelines and communities that some of the developers are trying to do. So open-mindedness is going to absolutely remain something that we need from the community at large.
I want to also clarify that our households are changing dramatically. So literally we're rapidly approaching 40% of our households being single-family households, single-person households. So that's changing our need for housing and what they actually need. So there's a misperception out there that everybody's got to have a 3-bedroom, two bath ranch or whatever it may be out there in the marketplace. That's just not true anymore. We need diversity of housing so that we fit the needs of all of these different groups.
Yes, as Tom said, so many misconceptions. We probably could do an entire episode just on the misunderstandings out there in real estate, but not also there is a misperception about the types of people that would be living in what we would now call an affordable single family home, which is about $300,000 is the best you can kind of hope for new construction. And we're talking about our teachers, firefighters, police officers, nurses, upstanding, good people that we want and need in our community is what we're talking about. Also, that there's a huge misconception out there that if you're in a $500,000 home and somewhere near you, homes that are a little smaller, different, a townhome or a condo, or it's even not as expensive as your home, that's going to depreciate your property values. It is not. We study this. This is from the Realtors Association. We study these things in depth across the country. There is not a shred of evidence that it'll have any impact.
Up next, our experts discuss efforts to change legislation and regulations, as well as helpful tips for consumers. Stay with us. And welcome back. Before the break, our guests in the local housing industry spoke about what's fueling the housing shortage in Wisconsin and ways which they believe people need to think outside the box to address it. Well, part of their effort is pushing for new legislation. Take a listen.
Across the board, from the national level to the state level, and we've been working very closely with our local units of government, many of whom in Northeast Wisconsin have been working really hard of doing housing studies and changing their zoning ordinances and updating comp plans. And what we need from each level of government is going to differ. But yes, a lot of it has to do at the end of the day with either reducing a lot of unnecessary regulations. We have to have regulations surrounding housing, but there is a lot of regulation that's been identified that simply is adding cost, delaying without necessarily a real purpose. On average, government regulation from the federal, state, and local level adds on about 40% of the cost to multifamily and about $88,500 for every single family home. So you think about it, the end price of that home, if you're buying a $300,000 house, almost a third of that is regulation, has nothing to do with the end product or the land that the person is into. And so trying to reduce that regulation, trying to create some tax incentives, do investment. There's a lot of risk right now to doing housing development, to try and incentivize more developers and builders to do development, things of that nature.
And you're partnering with other groups as well.
Yes, for a long time with housing, Tom can attest to this. It felt like we were kind of out there on our own saying things are getting really bad with housing, with costs and with the ability to put units up. But now more and more and more groups are really, I think, seeing the impact of the shortage and the affordability issues and are starting to come to the table and get involved and find ways to advocate for housing and to help people who need housing navigate their way through it.
Yeah, and it's kind of exciting because it's at all levels. So we're seeing it from the public side, we're seeing it from the private side, and we're seeing it from the nonprofit side. And for the first time in a long time, we all have aligned goals, which is really helping. And we're seeing progress, so we're excited about it.
So for consumers, what type of tips do you have for them to help them navigate this as you all are working on solutions?
For me, I think the biggest thing is keep an open mind. Really think about it. When we talk about affordability, we're not talking about let's say public supported housing or anything. This is for-profit housing. These are new products that we need on the marketplace to hit the needs and the price points that people need to get into those homes, to start building that equity and start building some net worth, which is really what we're trying to do.
Megan, Jennifer?
I would say there's the individual and what they need to do, right, to be able to position themselves to get into a home. And then there's what they can do on an advocacy side for their community. On the individual side, if people are either looking to become a homeowner or they need a bigger housing or they need to move for some reason, definitely working with a realtor in such a competitive market helps. Working with a lender to fully understand your financial situation and make sure that you're not getting yourself in over your head by buying something that is really stretching your budget too far. And being patient. It takes some time, really, especially with such a tight inventory. And on the advocacy side, I would say if you are an individual and you are struggling to find housing, talk with your employer. Really let them know what your situation is and what your struggle is, because our business community is going to be one of our biggest allies in advocacy, and they need to know those personal experiences of their employees. And also, you can be an advocate for housing in your own community just by sharing your own personal story. It can be as simple as sending an email to your congressperson, your state representative, or your city alderman, for that matter, and sharing your own struggles to make sure that they're aware that their own constituents are encountering a great difficulty.
And our thanks to our guests for sharing their thoughts on the housing shortage here in Northeast Wisconsin.